Hi, Dick Rauscher here. Today we're going to be talking about Stony Hill nugget number 270. When the darkness descends, live your values. Now, I broke this nugget into two parts because it got kind of long. This is probably one of the more important nuggets I've written in a while. At least I feel this way. At any rate, I broke it into two parts. I'll do part two in the next nugget. But for now, let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Basically, it's the Trump election, okay? We went through an election that shocked our nation. Half of the people in our country are elated. The other half are living in despair, okay? Depressed. They've lost hope. The darkness has descended for a lot of people, okay? And it got me thinking, as a person who likes to add value to the lives of others, I have to, and because I was one of the despair group, frankly, but what it really kind of challenged me to do is to think about how do we maintain hope when things appear dark, okay? And I say appear because we don't know for sure whether Trump will be a dark event or a positive event. I mean, only history will tell you that. But right now, a lot of us are struggling with a lack of hope. So this article is about how do we reclaim hope, okay? I think this is crucially important if we, not only for our own mental health, but also for our nation, okay? So let's jump in. Basically, the premise of this article, both part one and part two, is simple. Our goal is how do we reclaim a sense of hope? And this can't be wishing. This can't be hoping that there'll be a better future. The hope I'm talking about now that we need is real hope based on real plans on how we're going to move into a real future, okay? And we'll take a look at that. The point I'm trying to make in this article is that value clarity is absolutely crucial. What are our values? If we don't have clarity on our values and know exactly what we stand for and who each of us are both as people and what our nation is as a nation, we're not going to have the vision that we need. We're not going to have the clarity that we need to be able to sustain and move towards a hopeful future. Okay? So it's that simple. So here's how I approached it. And other people have other approaches, but this is the one that I like. I like to go back and take a look at what is reality. Okay? Because if I can ground myself in reality, then I'm not pushing the river all the time. And for me, pushing the river, for those of you who follow me, you know that means where you try to force reality to conform to our own views and opinions and expectations and assumptions, okay? That's never a good thing. Never works out well because change is change. And we cannot deny the reality of change. Okay, change is evolution. And here's the key. Everything, let me say it again, everything in the entire universe changes. You can't stop it. It just is. It's the foundational basis of our universe. Everything is in a process of changing and becoming something new. Okay? Now, sometimes those changes are good, sometimes those changes are not so good, but over time, nature always finds a way to make it a positive, the change is always for positive good, okay? So, once we begin to recognize that what we're facing now as a nation is just change, okay? Now, some of us think it's bad change or despair change. Other people are elated that it's changing in a very positive direction. But the bottom line, we all believe that it is changing, and that's good because everything does. Now, Here's the concept that I think is again a foundation for hope in the face of change that we struggle with, change that we don't think is positive. We have a feeling, human beings, and this is part of primitive ego psychology in terms of primitive ego theory, and that's our ego, our immature ego, okay, not our awakened ego, but our childhood unconscious ego, really does not like change. So it's always trying to make the future somehow static. It's just the future is the future and nothing is going to change. It's just the future. Well, we're going to look at that here in this nugget, because there is no such thing as the future. There are only possible futures, okay? The future does not exist. And if we want to force it to exist, then the only thing that you can actually say about the future is that it will change everything, okay? So, to avoid pushing the river and getting all stressed out, trying to stop change or forcing the future to be the same and not change, then what we need to look at is what's the possible future that we would like to begin helping create, okay? It's going to change. Can't stop it. If you do, you're pushing the river and you're going to get yourself all stressed out. So, we're moving now into the acceptance of change, but what we're going to do is we're going to use value clarity to create what we want, and that's the basis of hope, okay? Creating a future that makes sense to us, and we're going to use our values to do that. If we don't have good clarity on the values, it's going to be like getting behind the wheel of a car without putting our hands on the steering wheel and hitting the gas and going, okay? Only when you grab hold of the steering wheel do you take control of that direction that you're going in, okay? What I call big change began long before the Trump election. If you think about what's happened in our world, we are now embracing big change. For example, there are black swan events. A black swan events, for example, is the fact that petroleum, we're going to have to end our dependence on petroleum. And petroleum is the foundation of human civilization right now. So this is going to change everything. That's a black swan event. We didn't anticipate until quite recently that petroleum is going to destroy our planet, and it's well on its way, okay? It's a black swan event in that it's not predictable. So we have some unpredictable changes that we have to cope with. But we also have other big changes. Let's look at scientific, okay? I don't know about you, and I'm sure some of you won't remember this, but others will. I can remember when my cell phone was a block about this big, about yay wide. It weighed about 8 pounds. You put it up by your ear and you had this great big antenna sticking up in the air, okay? And you were very fortunate if you could even get a signal out, okay? That was only 15 years ago. Think about what technology has done just in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. My father didn't know how to program his television, okay? He had to call. Well, I thought that was kind of stupid at the time, but I hate to admit it, but I have called some of my grandchildren a couple times to ask them, how do you fix this on a computer, or how do you accomplish this on a computer? And their response, oh, that's simple. And they come in and click, 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 and it's done, okay? That's how fast, and I consider myself fairly adept at the computer and it's scientific stuff. I made a commitment I wasn't going to get behind the learning curve. But it's changing so fast, it's almost impossible not to, okay? The way the world is working now, we're not isolated anymore. The entire world is connected, okay? All the time, 24/7. Social changes, okay? Now, what we're talking about are worldviews. In other words, ways that we think the world should function. That's what a worldview is. We know what's right. Politically, economically, this is the way it should be. That's a worldview. But look at what's happening. This was a worldview too, petroleum-based economy. An economic system based on greed. That was a worldview. Everybody accepted it. What's in it for me? Okay? But what we're recognizing, that's exponential growth. That if everything is unlimited expansion, then everything starts to go to infinity. The world doesn't work that way. We're violating the laws of nature and reality. So these are worldviews under attack. Big change has been attacking our worldviews long before the Trump election. And here's the key. And I was going to talk about social. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Social changes. Who would have thought that we'd legalize pot? Okay? Who would have thought that we would legalize gay marriage? I mean, some of these changes that are coming in our culture, no one would have forecasted. They're almost a black swan event. They're so radical in nature. Who would have thought that globalization would become a problem? Everybody saw that as supporting this greed-based, unlimited expansion economic system, right? And yet what we're recognizing today is that there are some significant challenges to globalism, diversity being one of them. Any rate, what we're seeing is that our worldviews have been under attack for a long time, long before Trump. Trump is not the problem. Trump is a system of worldviews collapsing under the force of big changes. How does this work as far as building hope? Well, let's go back to the possible future. If everything is changing and we have good clarity, in other words, we can't stop change, we got to accept it, but we have really good clarity on our value systems, then we know what's going to be at the foundation of a possible new future. Now, long after Trump is fading into the annals of history, okay? Long after he has done his thing, whether it's a 4-year thing or an 8-year thing, doesn't make any difference who follows him, doesn't make any difference about political party. I don't know whether it'll be a Democrat, an independent, a Republican. There'll be another president after Trump, and guess what? And here's the hope. All of this stuff is going to still be a challenge that we're going to have to deal with. It's not going away. No one president can deal with these kind of black swan changes or the scientific growth or the social changes that are going on. Our worldviews are under attack faster than any time in human history. And the worldviews are changing so fast, we don't have an opportunity to really adapt to them. Well, guess what? That's going to continue. So, instead of looking at Trump as the problem, just look at him as a part of the changes, that he's not the problem. He's an example of the problem. That's all. Okay? If these changes hadn't happened, if we weren't under big change in our worldviews, he probably wouldn't have become president. But he did, because we are. Right? So if we're going to find hope, then we got to recognize that these changes are going to be around long after Trump is gone. He's just a symptom. That's all he is. And we have to gear up with value clarity to plan for new worlds, because the future is changing. Okay? And we're going to be responsible for creating that future. Bottom line. But we can do that. We're going to have to work together, and we're going to have to wake up our consciousness a little bit, which is what I teach a lot, but it is possible. We'll continue this discussion in part 2, and there I'll look a little bit more at the value side. But in this first part 1, I wanted to look at the whole concept that change is a reality, and we have to suck it up and deal with it. We don't have a choice. Okay? All right. We'll see you down the road at the next nugget, and we'll take a look at part 2.